So hey everybody, today we have a presentation about our supply chain module 6. So we have simulated this game into a Star Wars because we think it's like a battle for us to achieve our final objective. So this presentation is present by Chen Shi, Nicholas Pearson, Tyler Ullman, and Sailor Tasney. So there are many real-world implications we can learn from this game. There are many steps happened every day in our real world. We found it is very easy to underutilize a factory's productions, and we know that importance of knowing our customer and what their priorities are, so we can just manage our production turns. And the necessities of managing our supplies to properly fulfill contracts is very important. Also, it is very critical for us to know capabilities of our companies before doing our business. We have a very fabulous experience through this game. When we went through this module attempting, we have to maximize our net worth while properly managing our contracts. And we need to concentrating on having the material necessary to properly complete our contracts. So we do not have to delay our contracts. And we will explain our thoughts process as we tackle this simulation. Here is our final results. We have a final grade of 85%. We have submitted 70 buys. We won 67 of them, and 68 contracts was completed by us. There is 98.53 satisfaction with our quality of work. Our company has a final net worth of $203,266 worth and a reputation score of 13,236.
So as we went into this module, we constructed an opening strategy, much like they made a strategy to destroy the Death Star, as we tackled the bidding process, the materials process, the employee process, the equipment process, and the shipping process. As we went into the bidding process, we obviously tried to attain the most valuable contracts. We looked for the ones that had the longest lead time before they were due, so we could shorten that and increase the price. And we tried to complete those so that we would be able to get contracts from the more reputable companies that generally had better contracts. There was a period where we only got low value contracts, and we tried to affect the bids so they'd be worth more by decreasing the amount of time they were due and increasing the price. And this worked to a degree, but we still weren't able to attain the value of those like $20,000 value contracts. Eventually they stabilized to a value of about $10,000. So we tried to capitalize that and still maximize value, but it didn't return us to the period where we were getting very large valuable contracts. As we went into the material process, we focused on being able to have the materials we needed in 2 to 3 turns. So we would see the contracts, bid on them, order the materials we would need for it. And then by the time we had accepted the contract, it would only take, or by the time they had accepted our bid, it would only take 1 or 2 more turns before we would have the materials needed to to satisfy the contract, basically. Oftentimes we bought from a more expensive supplier because those materials we felt were more universal basically we thought they could be used in multiple contracts interchangeably, and the customer would be satisfied with the result. And the higher quantity or higher quality materials could often be bought in bulk orders that would ship quicker, and we could get a pretty big discount when we ordered that much. And finally, we were able to put lead time on some orders if we knew we had a lot of extra time, but that wasn't the thing we focused on most, I think. As we looked at the employees, we kind of treated them as like clones of each other. They were very disposable. We tried to fill out certain sections of our company first with these like the least expensive but most valuable employees we could get. So receiving and production were the first to receive any attention because we needed to be able to handle sorting large amounts of material that we were ordering in, and we needed to be able to have access to more than like 2 contracts at a time. After a couple quarters and completing a couple contracts, we needed to put workers in shipping and bidding to increase our customer service and the ability to ship out larger amounts of goods at once if we had multiple contracts. At one point, as I mentioned earlier, when our contracts started to stop being as valuable, we tried to put more employees in bidding, but unfortunately that didn't help. So we removed them, but our customer service benefited from that all the same. When we looked at equipment, admittedly we focused a little bit less than on other sections, but we really just tried to upgrade the machines that we knew were in high use and would be valuable for us. We tried to upgrade them and decrease the startup time. And although it was expensive, it seemed to increase our efficiency, especially when we had orders with contracts that needed the same garment created. So it would take less time for that machine to be used. And by the end of the module, we did completely upgrade all of our machines, which was pretty nice, I think.
Okay, so similar to the Star Wars galaxy filled with constant war that involves the mass shipments of weapons, soldiers, ship components, and so on, we too have to maximize our efficiency in the shipping room to gain an edge over competitors. Our goal was to ship our goods out as quickly as possible right after we finished production. This was all to increase the amount of bids we could accept, work, and then profit on. So we operated on a basis to get an order out as quickly as possible and send it out immediately in one bulk order. This saved us a lot of money on carrying costs associated with storing finished goods in the warehouse. We also had to manage our employees in the shipping room, often as the finished good quantities were increasing with larger orders and as the module progressed, which meant that our inventory began to weigh more. So we needed to hire more workers to be able to send out finished goods in one sole shipment to save on both shipment costs and avoid any unnecessary expediting. Okay, so going through the module, this involved changing who we had working at each department, as well as exchanging lower level employees gradually for higher ones as the contractor's quality of products got larger and our clients expected more out of us. So we started to alter contracts more often to be beneficial to us, and we started to play around with the weeks it would take to deliver and the proposed payoffs with the bids. So to talk a bit about our sourcing process for the raw materials required to make garments, we decided to purchase materials in advance of contracts on a lot for lot basis. So that meant ordering an exact amount of materials each time based on the bid specifications such as quality and time frame. Our reasoning for this lot sizing strategy aimed to save money on holding costs, as we learned from previous modules that these costs can drain profits tremendously when they continuously add up. Also, we usually use some sort of lead time, often 2 to 4 weeks, as many of our orders were originally kept in the 10 to 14 week range to give us time to finish the products. And we often found that higher quality items with the combination of lead time worked great as order volumes began to increase quickly. And in an effort to save our receiving warehouse from overflowing and having a stockpile, we tried our best to space out deliveries and to not overwhelm our sourcing department. In particular, the advantages we noticed with this strategy is that our replenishment orders are planned as required. It reduced any on-hand inventory and carrying costs, and all orders could be modified somewhat easily for purchase discounts. The main disadvantage, though, associated with this technique for us is that it maximized the orders we had to place. And with that, it significantly increased our individual ordering costs as buying in bulk is always cheaper. And the last part of our process would be the production process. So we operated on what is known in the supply chain field as a make-to-order production system. A make-to-order, or an MTO as it's called, is a strategy that allows consumers to purchase products that are customized to their particular specifications. So this manufacturing process works when the production of an item begins only after a confirmed customer order is received. So the main advantage of our make-to-order system is the ability to fulfill an order with the exact product specifications required by the customer. So sales discounts and finished goods inventory are reduced, and overall stock obsolescence is managed. The two main drawbacks, though, using a make-to-order system are the time it takes to make the individual product orders, especially highly customized ones that require the specialized machinery, and the cost it took to make these customized products for each and every one of our clients.
Okay, so we definitely had a few struggles throughout the simulation, as you would with any project. So one of our problems was the unsorted materials slowing down our process of production. So these unsorted materials made it difficult for us to continuously and quickly produce contracts because these materials, while we had them, they just weren't available because they were still being sorted. So by hiring either more receiving employees or training more, we could maybe have fixed this, or giving more lead time in the future. So we don't have all of the materials for all of the contracts at once. Another problem was the utilization of machines would be wasted at times. So our utilization was not very high at times, which made our production less efficient, which made it harder for us to complete contracts as quickly as we could have. Another problem was the value of our contracts. As we said before, we went through a few periods where the bidding contracts were very wildly fluctuating, where we didn't have access to those higher profitable contracts. So we had to take lower profit ones and get all the materials and produce and ship it, which just didn't lead us to have as high of a profit as we wanted. We also didn't really train employees. Instead, we just opted to replace them. At times, we couldn't really afford to spend the week or 2 weeks to train that employee because we needed them in that department at that time because demand was high. So we could have trained our employees maybe earlier before demand started picking up. That was a solution that we came up with. And then another struggle, one of the last ones, was that there were some weeks where our production would dramatically slow down. Some contracts just took longer to fulfill, which forced us to expedite shipping, which added a significant cost. And this was also a result of the low utilization for our machines and unsorted materials that couldn't be used. So just a comparison to some of the other teams, we completed this module in 3 hours and 9 minutes. Looking at the final results, we are definitely on the lower side compared to most of the other teams, but there are a bunch of teams that did complete this module in 3 to 4 hours that scored very high. So we don't think that this was a huge factor in our score. The bids, we submitted 70 bids, won 67 of them, and completed 68 contracts. So this was a very good ratio compared to the other teams. So we were very efficient in bidding. 99% of our contracts were completed on time, which is consistent with the results from the other teams because most scored between 97 and 100. And this is similar to our satisfied quality. We were 98.53%, which is also very consistent with how the other teams performed as well. Our total contract value was $944,250, which is definitely on the lower side compared to most other teams. Most were in the million or 1.5 million in total contract value. This could be as a result of our fluctuating bidding process and that lull that we went through where we couldn't really get that high of bids. So these lower contracts that we had to take just didn't allow us to get a higher contract value. Our net worth was $203,266 overall. Again, this is on the lower side compared to most other teams, but there were a bunch of teams in the 300,000 range, so that was pretty good. And our reputation was very high. We had 3,236. We definitely focused on raising our reputation early in order to have access to better bids in the future, which is what this shows. And then some improvements to make. We could have altered the bidding terms to be more advantageous to our team. We could have plotted out the utilization of machines to effectively produce as much as we could. This would increase our production and make it easier for us to ship out completed contracts quickly and without expedited shipping costs. And it would also increase our turnover rate and give us a better opportunity to take more contracts, which would have increased our profit and net worth. We also could have looked more closely at how the level of staff influences how a department performs. So we could have looked more deeper into the staff utilization and how efficient they were as in each department and looked for areas to improve. And then the last thing is we could have done quality inspections on materials to improve our overall quality satisfaction. We did have a pretty high quality satisfaction, but just doing these extra quality inspections could have increased it to an even higher number. And then just in conclusion, this project provides a great entry to supply chain operations management because it puts us in an operations decision maker role, and we're able to gain experience in this decision-making process. It also created a week-to-week life in a supply chain operations role where contracts had to be managed. And it gave us an in-depth look at how different components of a supply chain interact and work with each other. Like all the processes we were talking about above, how bidding and ordering and receiving, how not being able to process the materials as quick affects our production, which affects how late we can ship out the contracts. So they all kind of tie together. And then it also gave us a chance to experience a small portion of the real thing in an introductory course.